Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the vlog once again. It's exciting times on Hornby Island. For those of you that don't know Hornby Island is one of the Gulf Islands which runs in between Vancouver Island and I guess it would be the lower main, what we call the lower mainland or the mainland. And there's islands that run all the way from the North Island to the South Island, right into the States. And the islands in the States, I believe, are called the San Juan Islands, and then we have the Gulf Islands. So Hornby Island is an island that I've been to many times. It's one of my favorite islands. I just love the vibe here, and there's some neat things to look at and try and photograph. I can't say much for their calzones though, or their their other pastries in Ford's Cove here. I made the mistake of having a calzone, and it was just, oh my god, it was awful. And my buddy Colin's here with me, and he had one, and I'm not even sure if he's alive. Oh, there he is. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty bad. Well, the weather is starting to clear up, so that's nice. We've come out to a place called Tribune Bay, which is a really popular kind of tourist destination. There's a really nice beach here. So in the summer it gets quite busy here. But just to the right of the beach, there's all these boulders and rocks, and it's really interesting. So I've come to this somewhat of an alcove, and right in front of me here there's some really great roots growing over the cliff. So I'm going to see if I can get a shot of the roots. The only problem with it is that there's a massive boulder in the foreground that kind of hides the roots a little bit. So I have to kind of come over to the right. But as soon as I do that, you lose some of the patterns and the structure of the roots coming down. They actually look better looking directly at them from 90 degrees or parallel to them. But of course, then the boulder is in the way. All right, I really like this scene for some reason. I think it's probably because of the smooth sandstone. So we have this beautiful contrast between the smooth sandstone and then these logs that have washed up on the shoreline here, and they're also smooth because they've been in the ocean for quite some time, bashing up against the shoreline here. So they become quite smooth over time. And there's some really great just textures in here. And I like the gradation between the shadows and the highlights. So what I've done here is there's a branch just to the right here. I was going to take it out, but I think it helps. It leads you in from the right corner, and then it continues with that other log on the right as well in the background there. And then we have this log in the central portion, and then this massive log that goes all the way from here on the left all the way to the end. So they all kind of point you into that direction. And then I'm just carefully maneuvering myself so that we have the bottom of this log, it's not cut off, and they just kind of intermingle with the boulders. So it just creates a really pleasing scene. I love the mosses on the trees in the background, but I think I'm going to eliminate those from the composition because then it just starts to get too much and too busy. So again, it's about trying to simplify things to the bare minimum to tell a little bit of story, or try and get your composition as simplified as possible. All right, so I'm in a bit of trouble turning around here. Whoa, careful. So I've had to make a bit of a platform because this long log on the left side, whenever I think of a photograph or look at a scene, I tend to scrutinize quite a bit, and in this case I'm really scrutinizing the background. And if I'm down on the rock here at eye level, the log on the left kind of, it crosses over a point in the background that I feel is quite important in the frame. So for me to eliminate that kind of problem, the only way around it is to get higher. So I've grabbed a bunch of stones so I can stand on them, so I can get my elevation much higher. That's the great thing about having a tripod that goes really high, is that you're able to, even when I'm standing up high on these rocks like this, I'm still able to get the tripod much higher than my usual eye level height. So that's something to think about when you do buy a tripod, is to get one that goes up to, perhaps if you're 6 feet tall, up to 7 feet or maybe more, if you can find one. Because what happens is, especially when you're on hillsides, is you might be above your camera. Well, of course, if you have a tripod that's only 5 feet tall and you're on the hillside, then all of a sudden your tripod's only 4 feet tall. So if you can get one much longer or much higher, then that eliminates a lot of that problem of getting down too low and having to stoop down all the time. Now I've had to put the legs closer together so it gets even higher, because I am at its limit, but I am able to eliminate the problem of that log interjecting with the background. So I think this works as a vertical and as a horizontal. There's a few different compositions that I've tried, and I'll put the best ones up right now. So we've come out just a little bit further around the coastline, and we've come to this point here, and there's some absolutely beautiful boulders and rock formations here. It's very similar to Heron Rocks, which I've photographed before. except the rocks are a little bit different here. There's not so much Tafoni where you get those pock marks, but we got some really neat looking boulders that are quite smooth in nature, and then others that are quite rough. So it's kind of that contrast between the two that I really like. And also what I'm photographing here, there's some really great colors in there. There's some nice kind of subtle oranges, and then the greens from the seaweed, and then a few puddles in there as well. The light is quite nice right now because it's it's quite bright, but it's not too bright that it's going to create all kinds of contrast. So right now I'm just photographing. There's a boulder kind of isolated, and it's got some nice textures around it with the colors. And then where Colin is, I really love that cliff there, because you have that contrast between the smooth rocks and then the kind of rough top of that cliff there. Whoa! Those swallows. Very neat. So this is another section of Heron Rocks. We've just come down off, I guess we're further north on the island from the point. And the pock marks, or the Tafoni, actually gets more pronounced and better as you go North Island. But the coastline gets kind of narrower. Unfortunately, we were hoping for some good light this evening, but it's clouded over again. So the light is a little bit dull. But regardless, I'm just concentrating on some of the patterns in the rocks here. This section here is amazing. So we have these overhanging kind of rock sculptures, and of course you can see all the Tafoni in here, and there's little rock pools in there. Right now I'm concentrating on doing a pano just in the midsection here. I really like the greenery in the background, but I think it might be too much. Plus, unfortunately, we have a lot of these washed up logs. Some of them you can move, but a lot of them are too big, and they're really quite jarring because they're so bright. They really take your attention, and they're not particularly great looking, so it's kind of hard to avoid them. Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful morning. So Colin and I, we decided to spend another night. Originally I was just going to spend one night here, but the weather wasn't terribly great for photography, and of course you have to catch a ferry here, so there's a bit of expense involved. So I figured we'll spend another evening. So last night I managed to get one shot, I think, just down the beach here. The light was not terribly great. This morning the light is much better, as you can see. There's some great side lighting here. Now unfortunately there are some clouds out to the east, as seems to be the case always, but we are getting some great light, and it'll probably last for maybe half an hour maybe if we're lucky. So again, as always, every time I come here I'm scrambling around a little bit. It's such a cool area, but it's hard to find kind of order out of the chaos, because there's so many neat features, but it's trying to get them to line up properly in a meaningful composition, if that makes sense. Now, I have photographed these rocks before, but not in such great light. I photographed them in evening light, not morning light. So what I've decided to do is I've taken some up a little closer, but now I've backed off and I've decided to do a bit of a pano, because there's some really nice light skimming the tops of these rocks with the green algae on top of them, or I think it's algae or seaweed, some kind of seaweed. And of course in the middle here we have this one rock that has some really lovely textures on it. And the little island in the background there, I think it's called Hornby Island. I think that's what it's called. It's just a tiny little island here, and of course when the tide is out you can walk over to it. Yeah, I think it's a pleasant scene. The mountains are absolutely beautiful this morning. There's fresh snow in the mountains, and just a really lovely morning, because there's not that many people here, and of course the wildlife is great as always, so it's just a great place to be and hang out and take a few photographs. So I'll show you this image right now, and hopefully I can find something else before the light gets too harsh. Right then, I think I found another composition. The sun has gone behind some clouds, which actually isn't a bad thing, because it's subdued the light just a little bit, and of course it's getting later in the morning here, so we don't want the light too harsh. I really love these rocks, but I'm not terribly excited about the background. The mountains this way are really snowy, but the mountains this way, they don't have new snow on them. So they're a little bland looking, and of course with the horizon line being so straight, contrasts with these rocks that are quite haphazard, doesn't look quite right. So I think what I'm going to try and do is I'll include some of the ocean, but not the horizon line, and then just have the rocks, and the rocks have really nice light on them at the moment. But I also don't like the texture in the sea that much. I find it a little distracting, and I've said this a number of times in a lot of my videos. So what I'll end up doing is using a case ND filter. I'm not sure what strength, probably ND64, maybe a 10 stop, and just smooth the water out just a little bit, so that your attention goes more towards the rocks than the ocean. Well, once again, thank you ever so much, everybody, for watching this week's video. I really appreciate it. You know, it's trips like this that sometimes I have to pinch myself and just realize how fortunate and how lucky I really am to live in Canada and live on the west coast of British Columbia. It's just an absolutely gorgeous place to live and, of course, photograph. So if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. It's really helpful. And of course, if you enjoy the content of my channel, then please hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to support my channel in other ways, I do have a new zine coming out. A zine is kind of a mixture between a book and a magazine. It's a small book on Antarctica, and that will be out hopefully within the next few weeks, and I'll announce it as soon as it's out. That'll be on my website. I also have a few hats for sale, both hand knitted hats and baseball caps, so if you're interested in those. And of course it all helps go towards keeping this channel going and helps me get out here and take photographs and bring content to you guys. So thank you ever so much, I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have another video out for you next week. Alright folks, till next week, bye bye.